G'day everybody, how are you going today? It is very good to see you. Today we're going to be out with the 105 macro lens and the 70-200, and we might throw the 85mm in there as well just to see what they look like. So we're going to start here with the 105. To keep the tests the same, I'm not going to do any flare reductions on any of this. Alright, let's get this camera straight and find our frame. There's our frame right there, and we are going to shoot it wide open at 2.8. So we are at 64 ISO, 1250th of a second at 2.8. I'm now working with my copy of the MC105. The other copies have now gone back to Nikon, and I can only assume that it's going to be optically the same. We'll find out. And what we're also going to do here is shoot some video. So we're rolling some 4K here right now. It's 2.5 thousandth of a second at 64 ISO at 2.8. Again, we're on the Z7. So there we go, we've got a few seconds of that, and we'll jump over to the 70-200 and see what that looks like at 105, which happens to be marked here on the lens. Isn't that helpful? All right, camera off. Okay, so we will wind this around for 105, bang right in the middle of it right there. And I've made no changes. We will roll 4K and we'll just see. Do these look the same? We are at 2.8, 2.5 thousandth of a second, 64 ISO on the Z7 with the 70-200 Z lens at 105. And I've put it right in the middle of the settings. Is that the right thing to do? I presume so. All right, we've gotten 10 seconds of that, so let's pop over to stills. Nothing should have changed at all, except the people and the dog. I haven't changed the focus point, haven't changed the settings. We've got a few frames there, the light's identical, no clouds, great. Now we're going to go to the 85. Now obviously there are some differences here, and the largest difference of course is the focal length. The 85 also has the advantage of being a 1.8 lens, so theory suggests that at 2.8 it should be optically better than those other two lenses wide open. But is that the case? We will see. All right, so it is at 2.8. Get some quick stills. Obviously it's a slightly wider frame, and we will go over to video, and off we go. We shoot some video.
What we have here is the 85, the 70-200, and the 105. What we're going to look at first is the 105 and the 70-200. Now the first thing that's happened here is I had my brilliant testing conditions, and the 70-200 is so much heavier and larger that even so I didn't move the focus point, the sheer weight of the lens on the tripod, move the focus point from about here in this one to here on the 70-200. So our focus point's basically moved from about here on the 105 to about here. So it is making a little bit of a difference with the test. Now we're looking here at 100%. And what I want to say is the color, the rendition, the contrast, all those sorts of things are looking super similar. And the differences I can see is, firstly, I thought I'd dialed up 105, but it was 104. So sorry about that. But optically, golly gosh, these lenses look super similar. They're both very sharp. And look, with this test, which is perhaps not as scientific as it could be, with this test, I really can't see a difference. Now let's zoom into 100% here, 200%, 200%. Okay, so we're on the edge of frame, and this is the focus area here. Yeah, this is why 200% doesn't really work for me, because then the whole thing just doesn't look great. So let's go out. So we're looking at this area in focus and this area in focus. And they look pretty similar. I mean, the 105 is a ridiculously sharp lens, and I just have a little feeling that it's sharper. Here we go. Here we've got an area that's similarly in focus, I think. Let's have a look here. Yeah, look, I feel like the 105 just does that slightly better. That's what it feels like to me. But it's a very, very close race. And of course, with one of them, you've got a zoom lens. So there might be like a 1% or 2%, 3% difference. Otherwise, it's really similar. Of course, they're both at 2.8. Now, let's have a look at the 85. Let's throw the 85 into the mix. And the first thing you will notice here is that it's brighter. So it is also set to 2.8. So everything's the same. So these lenses, these two lenses, 70 to 200, if we look over here, and the 105, very similar. But this one, at 2.8, is noticeably brighter. Interesting. So transmission, it has a higher T-stop, to the best of my understanding. At 2.8, that is. We're not testing everything here. So if we go into 100% and our focus region is back here. Now, of course, one's at 85 and one's at 105. So we're going to be further away on the 85 mil. Now I'm just trying to match 100% on that one, 100% on that one. This area is in focus, and as I said, we can see that this is brighter at the same settings, and a substantial amount brighter. And as for sharpness, well, let's go to 200%, which I'm just not sure 200% is helpful because it all starts to look blurry. And I would say those results are similar. For this sort of work, I don't think there's a perceptible difference. You let me know if you can see something that I can't see. But I think they look pretty similar. Okay, so what we're going to do now is try a different location. Here we are on the 70 to 200 2.8S at 2,500, 2.8 on the tripod. And we're on the 105 MC 2.8, 1/5000th of a second, 4K on the Z6 II. And you can just see how fast that focus shifts. It's very quick, very responsive. So for long distance stuff, as a prime lens, it works extraordinarily well just as a general all-round lens. Looking at the 105 on the top and the 70 to 200 on the bottom. Focus point is here on this column. And look, we're at 200% and the results are very, very similar. Again, look, the focus points might have shifted ever so slightly. We're shooting at a distance here, but very similar results. Very similar results, and backgrounds are pretty similar. This one, in this particular case, looks a little bit smoother than this one. And, that's quite interesting how they change. But they do have different optical formulas, of course. I don't think either one is good or bad. They're just different. But again, the settings are identical. And if we zoom out and look at the images, this is what they look like. Both at 100%. We've got roughly the same frame, and pretty much to everybody's eye, these would look the same, similar, just very, very similar. Very, very similar. So the 105 is certainly on par optically. Obviously, it's a prime. It's up there with the 70-200. There might be slightly better contrast, but these are such minor things. These are very similar lenses.
Again, here we are wide open on the 105, 2.8, 1/5000th of a second at ISO 64 on the Z7, the original. Looking great, looking for chromatic aberration. We've got the direct sun bouncing off the water. Seems to be handling it nicely at this angle of attack. All right, let's swap. Okay, we are at 105 on the 70-200. Is there a slight difference in chromatic aberration on the water? What I have noted with this lens is it does depend on where you are in the elements in the lens. When you're zooming, it does change things. Settings are identical otherwise. 1/5000th, 2.8, 64 ISO on the Z7. Okay, well here we are on the 85, 1/5000th, 2.8, chromatic aberration. Chromatic aberration looks worse through the viewfinder, but who knows for sure. We'll wait until we look back. So here we are on the 85, the Z85, 1.8 at 2.8, 1/5000th of a second, 64 ISO. Okay, now we're recording with the 105, also at 2.8. The other one was at 2.8 as well. So close up, mid, back. Close up, mid, back. And what I can see here from this very quick test is that I think the 105 is more sure-footed, and I think that's because of the two motors. It's just going to be more sure-footed about it. Sorry, I went further out. So close, mid. Yeah, I do think that's faster than the 85. It seems much faster going from close to infinity than it does in the other direction. From here to here is very fast. I'm happy with that. Like, I don't need more than that. I don't know if anybody else would need. We're talking about from here to here, like I'm about to press the button. Yeah, that's probably something like a quarter of a second to drag that into focus. And from here back to here, very quick. So very quick as a landscape lens. And if we go to a more portrait sort of distance, like this tree here, and if we jump between here and here, here, here. Yeah, well, we're going into macro area when we do that, but there's certainly some logic. I've been thinking about the fact that, of course, as you get closer to your subject, you actually want the focus to be slower. That actually makes sense. You don't want fast movement. Okay, this is handheld. We are at 1/8000th of a second at 2.8, 100 ISO on the Z6 II on the 105. And close. And far. Yeah, it's fast. Okay, so we now have the 70-200 at 105, 1/8000th of a second, 2.8, 100 ISO on the Z6 II. And we will go between the foreground. Very smooth, very fast, very fast, very fast. Now, I do think the VR feels better in the 105. Just moving around, this seems to have a bit more. Now, it might be to do because the lens is heavier, maybe. So it's just more effort for me to keep it stable. But focus-wise, I think the 70-200 feels slightly smoother, maybe, slightly more assured, but speed-wise, it's the same. So there's some really interesting differences between the three lenses. And just so I get this down, the 85 certainly seems to be the slowest and the least assured. The 105 and the 70-200 feel similar speeds, but the 70-200 feels a little bit more assured. But let's remember the close focusing distance. This thing can't get anywhere near as close as the 105. So it's got a motor and a drivetrain that probably has, well, much less distance to travel. Also, this lens is 2 times the price, more than 2 times the price, the 70-200. But I feel like the VR in the 105 is just a little bit smoother when you're just sort of moving around. Once you lock off like I am now, the 70-200 feels rock solid and it's really impressive. I'm actually shaking the camera. So there's some interesting data in all of that. So this is the 85mm 1.8 Tux City. A couple of meters, 20 meters, 3 or 4 kilometers. Not bad. That's the 85 1.8.
Here we are in Nikon's NX Studio software, which is their new software. And the thing I wanted to just verify was, where is the focus point on these images? Now, we can see the focus point was large, but the focus point is on the same lighting tower between the 105. Here we are looking at the 105. And let's go into 200%. 200%. Here we are. Now, this software is not as smooth as Capture One. That's okay. And this here is the 70-200. If we look over here, you can see that. So there's the two. And it's drawing them each time. It's not keeping them in cache. It's the way it goes. Can we do side by side in this software? I don't know. Does anybody know? Let's assume not. Anyway, we can see the focus point was in roughly the same spot. Now, we have to make an assumption that focus worked. That's where I asked it to be. It's the same area. It's working. So there it is. We've proved that in Nikon's own software. We are going to jump to Capture One to look at these same two images. So that is the 70-200 looking at that same light tower, and that is the 105 looking at that same light tower. Now let's get the two together on screen, and we are at 200%. Now what do we see when we look at these really closely? Why don't we even go to 400%? This is pretty harsh conditions. We're in the sun. We've got high contrast. And obviously the sun's moved. There will be a bit of time difference between them. Let's have a look. Yes, there's about 2 minutes. If we look over here, there's about 2 minutes between these shots. So the sun might have moved ever so slightly. But what I can see here is, yes, they both look in focus, but I do feel like this is slightly sharper. I do, just slightly. And I do feel like the background is slightly sharper. That's what I can see. It's quite obvious, actually, or more contrast, perhaps. And we can see a little bit of chromatic aberration here that's not here, but that could be to do with sun movement. And this is extraordinarily minor. We are looking at 300% here. What we can learn from this is at 300%, we can see a marginal difference. Maybe. At 200%, yeah, I think we can see a difference here in the building. Let's bring the crane into play. And I do think the background is sharper. Although in this case, there is more propensity for chromatic aberration because it's sharper. But again, it's minor, and we're at 200%. Let's go out to 100%, which is really much closer to reality. And everything except maybe for this crane, even the crane, it all looks almost identical. Although I do feel like we can see a difference in sharpness here in this building. And again, it might be more about contrast. It's hard to say. It really is hard to say. So these two lenses are very, very similar. Obviously, the 70-200 is a 70-200, so you get so much more range. but I do think the 105 is sharper at 105. And of course, it's a macro lens. And of course, they are both great portrait lenses. But yes, I do think the 105 is probably a little bit sharper. Maybe it's 2%, 3%, 4%. Fair enough, it's a prime. It only does the one thing plus macro. The other thing, though, that's really exciting about this lens, the 105, is, well, it's less than half the price of the 70-200. But of course, you don't have that 70-200. So let's not forget that. But this is super interesting. Let's hold on to the 105. We will release the 70-200 and we will find ourselves an 85 shot. All right, let's go in here. Again, it appears to be brighter, the 85. We're going to go into 200%. And of course, what we're seeing here is the fact that the 105 is getting us a little bit closer, but that's okay. I do think what we see here is, again, the 105 is a little bit sharper, but there's not a lot in it. The 85 is no slouch. It's a great lens. And again, it's even cheaper again. Looks great. Contrast might be a little bit different, but we do see that this lens overall, the 85, is a brighter lens than the 105 Prime. But you're not going to be disappointed with either of them. They will both give you great results, but I do think the 105 is a bit sharper. And if I was choosing between the two, I would go the 105 for that extra money and have the fact that you've got a macro, a super duper sharp lens. It's not heavy, it's not huge. It is a bit larger than the 85, but if I had to choose one or the other, yeah, I'd go the 105. So we're looking at the same bit of water. Now, again, water is moving, it's dynamic. These conditions are not identical, but I think we can speculate they're similar. I do think the 105 is handling chromatic aberration better, definitely, the 105 than the 85. So that's important and cool. Let's release the 85, bring in the 70-200 again. And if we look here, the bottom one is the 70-200. It is handling the chromatic aberration very, very well. So I do think, but when you look at this, I think the 70-200 and the 105 really are on par. They are very similar lenses overall. You are absolutely getting pro-grade quality out of both of them. It's good stuff. All right, let's go back to me.
All right, so now we are on the 105. The background is in focus, and here I am. Hopefully I'm in focus. Now, let me jump out of the frame. And now, back to me. Now, how's it going to cope if I'm, say, walking and talking about the fact that the city of Melbourne has had almost 6 months of lockdown in the last 12 months, and that's pretty tough for business. What is going to happen next? This is as if I'm a news reporter doing this all on my own, and hopefully I can walk back out of frame and show the beautiful background. This is the city of Melbourne. Will it survive? And then I can end my piece to camera being gently brought back into focus with the artificial intelligence camera operator who's working out who's me and who's the background. Hi there, hopefully I am in focus. Yes, I am. Face detect. Now let me jump out. Now we're going to finish off with the 85mm 1.8 at 2.8, just showing us, can it do the same sorts of things? Here I am again. Here's the beautiful city of Melbourne. And how does the 85 1.8 handle me casually walking towards frame? Is it freaking out or is it okay? Now I have my focus set to auto, but I have my exposure set to manual. That's what I do. All right, let's have a look. We will say goodbye from Albert Park Lake. Goodbye, 105.
105 in the middle, and in the right corner, the 70-200, and in the left corner, the 85 1.8. These are all fabulous lenses. I love them all for different reasons. Obviously, the 70-200 is a zoom lens, so by its very nature, it is compromised. But I think we can see here in this road test today that really it's not. It's absolutely keeping up with the spectacular 105 2.8S. I do think the 105 2.8 is a smidgen sharper, but all it is a 105. Now, if I was choosing between the 85 and the 105, I would personally choose the 105. For that extra cost, you do get extra sharpness, you do get an astonishing macro and portrait lens, and, well, you do get 2.8, which is not as good as 1.8, but I think I would go for all of those other extras versus that little bit of extra light gathering capability, because of course we can make up for that with a tripod, lower shutter speed, in-body stabilization in most but not all circumstances. Yes, indeedy. Now, I would love to know in the comments below, which would you go for? Would you go for the big kahuna, the 105 or the 85, or perhaps the 70-200 will cover all three of those for you? Please do let me know in the comments below. That would be awesome. See, I was trying to take a shot of a thumbnail and I just couldn't make it work. And in the end, the 70-200 got tired and it lay down. All right, everybody, it has been absolutely spectacular to see you today. I can't wait to see you again. And if this is your first time here, please do subscribe. Please click on the notification bell. Please like. Liking is so important and it helps the video get out there further. And don't forget, if you want to get your name in every single copy of the 2022 calendar, you've got to pre-order it before July 23rd. So go to mattirwin.com or click on the link below. Check out our website. Check it all out. I'll see you soon. Keep on clicking. And you, make some art. It's good for our souls. It's good for all sorts of things. All right. See ya. Here's the 105 on another day. I was shooting it into the sun. I was just messing around. And check that out. F11, 1/8,000th of a second. ISO 64 into the sun and still looking pretty good in my book.